Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. Welcome to PSM News in English with me, Hafiz Al-Sattar. And now the news in detail. President Dr. PSMNEWS announces the administration's decision to establish a reform and rehabilitation center named the Long-Term Residential Care Facility to provide necessary treatment and correctional programs for children at risk of committing crimes. This decision follows the advice of his cabinet of ministers. The decision was reached after thorough discussions on a proposal presented by the Minister of Homeland Security and Technology, Ali Hassan, at the latest cabinet meeting. The proposal outlines the establishment of a long-term residential care facility situated on an uninhabited island in accordance with the Juvenile Justice Act. The envisioned facility aims to offer specialized treatment and unwavering support to children at risk of juvenile delinquencies and those experiencing circumstances that may lead to such behavior. The proposal also provides a detailed outline of the recommended facilities and programs to be implemented within the center. The establishment of this facility underscores the administration's commitment to addressing juvenile delinquencies through comprehensive rehabilitation and support, aiming to steer at-risk youth towards a positive and productive future. First Lady Sajida Muhammad emphasizes the trust formed between a child and their parent on guardian plays a crucial role in safeguarding them from the unfavorable influences of society. She made this statement during her address on the occasion of Global Parenting Month. In her message, First Lady Sajida shared insights from her own parenting journey, underscoring the importance of building trust to keep children safe. She noted that fostering trust and connection helps children feel safe, valued, and understood. Noting that raising children is an immense responsibility, the First Lady stressed that strengthening the bond between parents or guardians and children is essential for providing a good discipline as they grow. She highlighted the need to adopt age-appropriate approaches to nurture strong connections. First Lady Sajida emphasized the importance of engaging in age-appropriate activities with young children to form closer bonds. She also noted the vital role of maintaining a close friendship-like relationship with teenagers. She added that those bonds grow stronger when the trust between child and parent or guardian deepens, which is essential for shielding children from negative influences they encounter in society. The First Lady concluded her message by stating that children are less likely to be swayed by societal influences when their parents serve as their most trusted confidants. Global Parenting Month is celebrated every June to honor the role of parents in raising their children and to promote the building of strong families. Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts votes to advise President Dr. PSMNEWS to remove Ali Hashim from his position as Governor of the Maldives Monetary Authority (MMA). The decision was passed by a majority of the committee members who attended the meeting.
The motion to recommend Hashim's removal was put forward by Deputy Speaker and Parliamentarian for Diggaru constituency Ahmad Nazim. Nazim expressed his belief that Hashim has not been fulfilling the responsibilities associated with the role of MMA governor. Nazim outlined the critical functions of the central bank, which include issuing and managing the nation's currency, determining the international exchange rate of the Maldivian rupiah, advising the government on monetary and banking matters, and formulating financial regulations. He emphasized that the central bank's monetary policy is a vital component of the country's economic foundation. Deputy Speaker criticized MMA for allegedly failing to support effective monetary policies and for indirectly restricting the issuance of loans by banks and financial institutions. He argued that these policies have led to a reduction in money circulation and a halt in economic activities. Nazim also noted the domestic market, which is increasingly crucial for government revenue, is not being properly regulated. He highlighted that MMA has not provided the necessary advice to achieve the objectives outlined in MMA Act since November 17, 2023. Emphasizing the central bank's role in the nation's economic growth, Nazim argued that it is time for new leadership and reformed monetary policies. Under the Maldivian constitution, President has the authority to remove the governor of MMA based on the advice of Parliament. Ali Hashim has been serving as the governor since his appointment on September 8, 2019.
Advisor to the Minister of Finance, Ahmad Munawar, attributes the rise in state debt to the financial mismanagement of the previous administration. He made these comments during a program aired on PSMNEWS.
Munawar noted the former government's greatest failure was its handling of the financial health of the state-owned enterprises, SOEs. He criticized the previous administration for increasing expenditures through poor staffing decisions, unmatched pay scales and a lack of comprehensive project planning. Munawar highlighted that by the end of the previous administration, the government's deficit had reached $3.4 billion, translating to an annual shortfall of $649 million. He also pointed out that SOEs were operated at excessively high costs, resulting in their collective debt climbing from $2 billion at the end of 2022 to $6.4 billion by the conclusion of the former government's term. Additionally, Munawar revealed that the total national debt, encompassing both government and corporate debt, stood at $12.9 billion at the end of the previous administration. Munawar detailed how capital and subsidies paid to SOEs surged under the previous government, rising from around $32 million in 2018 to approximately $389.5 million annually over the past 5 years. He provided specific examples of SOE debt increases, as Fenaka Corporation's debt grew from $77.9 million in 2018 to $279 million by November 2023. During the same period, State Electric Company Limited Stelco saw its debt rise from $181.7 million to $246.7 million. Additionally, Island Aviation's debt escalated from $64.9 million to $259.7 million over the 5 years.
The Ministry of Finance addresses recent remarks by former Finance Minister Ibrahim Amir regarding the recent credit rating downgrade of the Maldives by Fitch Ratings. The ministry clarifies that the downgrade stems from the previous administration's failure to implement essential measures to reduce state expenditure. In response to the former minister's comments, the ministry asserts that these statements misinterpret the financial situation and fiscal concerns of the administration. The ministry's statement highlights that despite the former administration's claims, the Maldivian economy is among the fastest growing post-COVID-19 and is projected to continue its rapid recovery. The Finance Ministry acknowledges that while the previous administration's addition to increase the goods and services tax (GST) in 2023 was a positive step, the failure to implement the most crucial fiscal measures, especially reducing government expenditure, was a significant oversight. The lack of action on this front led to a mismatch between government revenue and expenditure, exacerbating the national debt and risking fiscal sustainability. The International Monetary Fund (IMF) had warned in 2022 that these fiscal missteps had heightened the risk of a default in the medium term. The statement further explains that the Fitch Ratings downgrade primarily reflects the previous government's delay in implementing necessary fiscal reforms. While the former administration had outlined a framework for expenditure reduction in the 2024 budget, it did not provide a detailed action plan before the end of their term. Currently, the Ministry of Finance is actively working to complete the technical groundwork for these reforms and implement effective measures to reduce cost and enhance fiscal stability. Guidelines have been formulated to simplify the articles under the Right to Information Act. The Information Commission disclosed that the guidelines were drafted with the assistance of international expert in the field, Dr. Joan Barata. The guidelines were drafted by the Information Commissioner's Office under the Strengthening Maldives Communication Governance project by the ELENA International. The project was funded by the British government. Works to draft the guidelines initially commenced in 2022. 4 guidelines elaborating the articles under the Act were formulated. The 4 areas in which the guidelines were drafted are national security information, interpretation of information, commercial scope, information on trade secrets and information which are not considered as personal information. The closing ceremony held to mark the end of the workshop to draft the guidelines was graced by the presence of a Deputy Commissioner of the British High Commission, Kazi Dismal. Speaking at the ceremony, Information Commissioner Ahid Rashid revealed that the translation of the new guidelines will make it easier for individuals to comprehend the articles under the Act. He said this will be a convenience for several individuals and various government agencies. In addition to preparing the guidelines, specialized training programs were conducted targeting the ICOM staff, information officers of government bodies, civil society organizations and right to information activists. A total of 104 individuals participated in the training programs. The State Trading Organization STO confirms that shipments of staple foods from Turkey arrived in April following the bilateral agreements signed during President Dr. Mohamed Muiz's official visit to Turkey in November 2023. The visit, which took place from November 26 to 29th, resulted in agreements aimed at diversifying the Maldives' food supply sources. In a previous statement, President Dr. Muiz had announced the government's decision to import staple foods from Turkey as part of a strategic plan to address the nation's food security needs. The agreements signed during the president's visit included the import of essential food items such as flour, sugar and rice. STO disclosed to PSMNEWS that a shipment of 20,008 bags of flour was brought from Turkey on April 20, 2024. Despite opposition party criticisms claiming that no such shipments had arrived, STO confirmed that the imported staple foods are currently available in local shops. The organization emphasized that they are committed to importing these items based on demand to ensure a steady supply and avoid shortages. President Dr. Muiz has previously stated that the government's goal is to make the Maldives more self-reliant and less dependent on a single country for essential food supplies. He also mentioned that efforts are underway to import other staple items including onions, potatoes and eggs from various countries to further strengthen the nation's food security. The shipments from Turkey are part of the broader initiative to diversify the Maldives' food sources and stabilize the availability of key food items for the population. Multiple ambassadors present their letters of credence to the President of the Maldives, Dr. Mohamed Muiz, at ceremonies held at the President's office. This marks an important step in strengthening the Maldives' international relations with several countries. All ambassadors were ceremoniously escorted from Republic Square in a traditional Haikolu cultural procession accompanied by the Maldives National Defense Force, MNDF.
In separate ceremonies held, President of Maldives Dr. Mohamed Muiz received letters of credence from newly appointed ambassadors of Italy, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Eritrea and Colombia. The newly appointed ambassador of Republic of Italy to the Maldives, Damiano, presented his credentials. Ambassador Francovi and President Muiz discussed enhancing cooperation, particularly in the tourism sector, climate change mitigation, marine research and health cooperation. Diplomatic relations between the Maldives and Italy were established in 1966, and Ambassador Francovi, a non-resident ambassador, will continue to reside in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Also, the new High Commissioner of Sri Lanka to the Maldives, Pelpolaje Ranga Sujiwa Gunawardena, also presented his letter of credence. High Commissioner Gunawardena and President Muizzu engaged in discussions about investment promotion and economic cooperation, particularly in education and health. President Muizzu emphasized the importance of recruiting qualified teachers to the Maldives. Diplomatic relations between the Maldives and Sri Lanka were established on July 26, 1965. Meanwhile, new ambassador of Nepal to the Maldives, Basudeb Mishra, presented his credentials. Ambassador Mishra and President Muizzu discussed enhancing relations, noting the significant Nepali workforce in the Maldives and the importance of Nepal's assistance in human resource development, particularly in the health sector. Diplomatic relations between the Maldives and Nepal were established on August 1, 1980. Ambassador Mishra is a non-resident ambassador residing in Colombo, Sri Lanka. Moreover, the first ever ambassador of the state of Eritrea to the Maldives, Sihaye Voldemariam, presented his letter of credence and was received warmly by President Muizzu. They discussed exploring trade and economic cooperation as well as potential avenues for further collaboration at international level. Diplomatic relations between Maldives and Eritrea were established on February 10, 2021. Ambassador Voldemariam, a non-resident ambassador, resides in New Delhi, India. Also, the new ambassador of Colombia to the Maldives, Dr. Victor Echeverry Jaramillo, presented his credentials after being welcomed in the traditional procession. Ambassador Jaramillo and President Muizzu discussed enhancing cooperation in higher education, climate change mitigation and renewable energy. Diplomatic relations between the Maldives and Colombia were established on August 22, 1988. Dr. Jaramillo, a non-resident ambassador, resides in New Delhi, India. These ceremonies highlight the Maldives' ongoing commitment to strengthening its international relations and fostering cooperation in various sectors with countries across the globe.
The Maldives Customs Services (MCS) announces an increase in the customs duty exemptions limit from $389 to $648. This adjustment, effective from June 1st, applies to goods purchased by tourists and small items brought by private individuals.
According to the new regulations published by Customs, the exemption limit has been raised to $648, and goods exceeding this value will require the submission of a goods declaration form. Even if the value of the goods does not exceed $648, a declaration form might still be necessary depending on the type and quantity of the items. The updated regulations specify that the tracking numbers on goods shipped via post will be treated as representing a single shipment. Additionally, items arriving in the same post bag under one individual's name will be considered a single shipment for customs purposes. Under the new rules, customs duties will not be imposed on medical drugs prescribed by doctors for a period of 6 months. Furthermore, documents without a monetary value, such as postcards and electronic media documents, will also be exempt from customs duty. Leaflets, brochures and posters are similarly considered duty-free. Additionally, if the value of sample goods exceeds $50, they must be clearly marked as sample goods. Other significant changes include adjustments to the duty exemptions for personal goods brought by individuals returning from abroad. Those returning after 1 to 6 months will receive a duty exemption of up to $583 based on the free on-board FOB price of their goods. For individuals who have been abroad for 1 to 3 years, the exemption limit increases to $745 at the FOB price. Additionally, individuals returning after more than 3 years abroad will benefit from a higher duty exemption of up to $907 at the FOB price. To oversee and monitor the implementation of these regulations, Commissioner General of Customs will establish a special committee responsible for maintaining updated records and ensuring compliance.
Maldives Immigration reveals that under the largest raid operation in collaboration with the Maldives Police Services (MPS), a total of 83 illegal immigrants were identified and are currently in custody by the immigration. The initiative, which commenced on June 29th, aims to implement the government's policies and address the issue of illegal immigrants across the nation.
Under the operations as directed by the Controller General of Immigration, Mohammad Shamman, 4 areas in the local markets within the Greater Malé region were checked. Immigration disclosed that a total of 83 individuals were detained during the operations. The individuals detained include expatriates without a valid visa, expatriates working without permits, and those involved in activities outside the permitted activities as well. The immigration stated that efforts are underway to deport the illegal immigrants to their respective countries with the collaboration of relevant authorities. Over 1,800 illegal immigrants have been deported so far. Maldives immigration affirmed operations will expand across the nation, aiming to resolve the issue of illegal immigrants. They further revealed that legal action will be taken against illegal immigrants under the Immigration Act to reduce the challenges encountered and observed within the Maldivian economy and society.
A record-breaking mega project connecting Shenzhen and Zhongshan across the sea in South China's Guangdong province is believed to boost the mobility of people and the accessibility of businesses in the Guangdong, Hong Kong, Macau Greater Bay Area.
The 24-kilometer-long Shenzhen-Zhongshan link opened to traffic on Sunday, cutting travel time between the two cities from 2 hours to less than 30 minutes. With a total cost of 46 billion yuan or $6 billion, the highway project took 7 years to complete. The sea-crossing passage has 2 bridges, 2 man-made islands and a 2-way 8-lane tunnel. Prior to the official opening, vehicles have lined up in front of toll gates in the two cities. Local residents said this newly opened passage will greatly facilitate their travel between the two places. The link is considered one of the most challenging engineering projects of its kind in the world. The 6.8-kilometer-long underwater tunnel accounts for half of the project's 10 world records, including the longest 2-way 8-lane underwater tube tunnel, the widest underwater steel shell concrete tube tunnel, and the first underwater express interchange. The bridge section has also broken another 5 world records. Along with the Nansha Bridge and the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, the Shenzhen-Zhongshan link is expected to break regional boundaries on the Pearl River. The toll for the bridge only charges $9, cheaper than a meal at McDonald's. The Shenzhen-Zhongshan link is expected to handle more than 80,000 vehicles a day. The prospects for regional business look bright indeed.
Israeli forces advances further into the Shajai neighborhood of northern Gaza and also pushed deeper into western and central Rafah in the south, killing at least 6 Palestinians and destroying several homes.
Residents said that Israeli tanks, which moved back into Shajaya 4 days ago, fired shells towards several houses, leaving families trapped inside and unable to leave. Speaking at a weekly cabinet meeting on Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu repeated his stance that there is no substitute for victory in the war against the Islamist militant group Hamas. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, while the offensive focused on Gaza in the Israeli-occupied West Bank, 1 man was killed and 5 were wounded in an Israeli strike near the city of Tulkarm. Hours after Netanyahu's comments about Gaza, the armed wing of Hamas released a video purporting to show weapons making in a show of defense. The Israeli military said forces operating in Shajaya had killed several Palestinian gunmen over the past day and found military infrastructure inside a United Nations school, as well as dozens of weapons and valuable intelligence documents. In another raid in Shajaya, the forces located a terrorist war room at a clinic, said the military, which again accused Hamas of embedding itself in civilian structures for terror purposes. Hamas denies using civilian sites such as schools and hospitals for military purposes. The armed wing of Hamas and the allied Islamic Jihad reported fierce fighting in both Shajaya and Rafah, saying their fighters had fired anti-tank rockets and mortar bombs against Israeli forces operating there. More than 8 months into Israel's air and ground war in Gaza, militants continue to stage attacks on Israeli forces operating in areas that the Israeli army said it had gained control over months ago. Arab mediators' efforts backed by the United States have stalled. Hamas says any deal must end the war and bring a full Israeli withdrawal from Gaza. Israel says it will accept only temporary pauses in the fighting until Hamas, which has governed Gaza since 2007, is eradicated. According to Gaza's health ministry, Israel's retaliatory offensive has so far killed nearly 38,000 people and has left the heavily built-up coastal enclave in ruins. The ministry does not distinguish between combatants and non-combatants, but officials say most of the dead are civilians. More than 300 Israeli soldiers have been killed in Gaza, and Israel says at least a third of the Palestinian dead are fighters. Israeli tanks pushed deeper into several districts in the east, west and center of Rafah, near the border with Egypt on Sunday, and medics said 6 people had been killed in an Israeli strike on a house in Shabora in the heart of the city. The 6 bodies from the Zurab family were transferred to Nasser Hospital in the nearby city of Khan Yunis, where dozens of relatives paid their respects. Residents said the Israeli army had torched the Al-Awda Mosque in the center of Rafah, one of the city's best known. Israel has said its military operations in Rafah are aimed at eradicating the last armed battalions of Hamas.
Spain's coach Luis de la Fuente says that the team enjoyed almost total control of Sunday's Euro 2024 win over Georgia and were now looking forward with confidence to a quarter-final against Germany.
Spain came back after conceding an own goal to beat Georgia 4-1 in their last 16 tie at the Düsseldorf and were praised by their coach for an efficient performance. At a press conference, De La Fuente said that the team controlled the game at all times with brilliant stages of play against an opponent that defended really well and was good on the counter-attack. He emphasized the need to properly value how important this victory is because the opponent was a really good team. Spain fell behind when centre-back Robin Lenormand turned Otter Kakabet's bouncing cross into his own net but were level at half-time before going on to dominate the second half. De La Fuente said that they knew that Georgia's danger came from the transition and counter-attack, but they didn't have any shots on goal. He admitted that they were a bit nervous for a while after they scored, but the team created so many chances that the result could have been 8-1 for them. Spain next take on host Germany in Stuttgart on Friday in the quarter-finals. Regarding the match, Georgia's coach Willy Sangol said that although Georgia failed to pull off more giant killing against Spain, they will be overjoyed at how Euro 2024 went. The lowest-ranked team at the tournament at their first major finals defied all expectations to progress from their group after sparkling performances including a shock win over a Cristiano Ronaldo-led Portugal.
Japan successfully launches its new flagship H3 rocket carrying an Earth observation satellite from a space center on a southwestern island in a boost to the country's space aspirations following the vehicle's failed debut last year.
The domestically manufactured H3 rocket number 3 lifted off from the Tanegashima Space Center in Kagoshima Prefecture, releasing its first stage about 5 minutes later and separating the satellite about 17 minutes later as planned. The launch of the rocket, the successor to the country's current mainstay H-2A vehicle, comes as Japan seeks to gain a foothold in the increasingly competitive satellite launch sector, with plans to launch H-3 rockets 6 times a year. The launch of the H-3 rocket number 3 was initially scheduled for Sunday, but was put off due to expected bad weather. The launch of the maiden number 1 vehicle ended in failure in March 2023. It was ordered to self-destruct minutes after launch due to its second stage engine failing to ignite. The H-3 rocket number 2 in February was a success but carried a dummy satellite. The number 1 and number 2 rockets were test rockets unlike the number 3. The advanced land observing satellite 4 carried by the number 3 rocket is expected to be used for observing disaster-hit areas and monitoring ground transformation caused by volcanic activity or an earthquake. Through the use of radar, the satellite can acquire images even in bad weather and at night. The liquid-fuel H3 rocket was developed by JAXA and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries Limited to serve as Japan's next-generation heavy-lift launch vehicle. The launch service price for the H3 is expected to be lower than that of the H2A, according to JAXA. Global competition has intensified since SpaceX of the United States, which boasts a revolutionary technology and a strong track record in rocket launches, entered the market.
And that's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Wish you all a very pleasant time ahead.